You know, you hear about election surprises, but what happened recently in Parigi, Moutong, that's something else.
Yeah, quite the turn of events.
An apparent winner getting disqualified after the election. Okay, let's get into this. You shared some really interesting sources about the 2024 regent election there, specifically around Amrullah S. Qasim al-Madali.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission here is basically to understand the legal stuff behind the Constitutional Court's decision and, what happens next.
Right. And what's striking is how strict the application of election law was here. And the consequences, well, they're significant.
So what was the main issue?
It boiled down to the Constitutional Court, the MK disqualifying Mr. al-Madali. The reason? He hadn't completed the mandatory 5-year waiting period.
The waiting period for former convicts, right?
Exactly. That's under Law Number 10 of 2016, Article 7, Paragraph 2, Letter G, to be precise.
Okay, so the timing was key. Let's break that down.
Well, the Supreme Court's final decision, the cassation ruling on his previous sentence, was January 30th, 2020.
January 30th, 2020. Got it. And candidate registration?
That was August 2024.
Oh, wow. So just shy of 5 years. He actually became eligible after registration closed.
Precisely. That's the crux of it. And, it's interesting because the local KPU, the Election Commission in Parigi, Moutong, they initially saw this issue.
They did, but he still ran.
Well, yeah. He appealed their initial finding. He actually won appeals with Bawaslu, the election supervisory agency, and even the administrative court in Makassar, the PTTUN.
So he got the green light from them.
Initially, yes. But then the Constitutional Court, the MK, had the final say. Their ruling came on February 24th, 2025.
And they sided with the 5-year rule interpretation.
They did. They pointed straight back to that unmet waiting period. And there was also a previous MK decision, number 56 from 2019, which had already sort of clarified how this waiting period works and that candidates need to publicly announce past convictions.
So the legal precedent was kind of already there.
It seems so, yes. The framework was pretty clear.
Okay, so the MK makes this ruling. What happens then? It wasn't just about Mr. al-Madali himself, right? It had wider effects.
Oh, absolutely. A huge domino effect.
Yeah.
Because his candidacy was deemed invalid from the start.
All his votes.
Exactly. All votes cast for him and his running mate, Ibrahim A. Hafid, they were pair number 5. Those votes are now invalid, thrown out.
Which means the original election results
are also invalid. The KPU's initial declaration of winners is null and void.
So total reset. What does that mean for voters? A do-over?
Yes, essentially. Yeah. The MK ordered a revote, what they call a Pemungkutan Suara Ulang, or PSU.
A PSU, okay. Is there a time frame?
Yep, within 60 days of the MK's decision. But there are specific rules for this revote.
Like what?
Well, first, Mr. al-Madali himself is out. He cannot participate.
Makes sense. What about his running mate, Mr. Hafid?
He could still run,
right,
but his political party needs to nominate a replacement candidate for the top spot for Mr. al-Madali.
And if they don't find someone in time,
then the revote just goes ahead with the other 4 candidate pairs who were originally running.
Okay. And who gets to vote in this PSU? New lists?
No, they'll use the same voter lists from the November 27th, 2024 election, the DPT, DPTB, DPK.
Logistically, that probably makes things a bit simpler. Who's running the show?
The local KPU, Parigi Moutong's election commission, is in charge. They need to coordinate funding with the government, central and regional.
And security. Always a concern.
Right. The police, regional and local, so Polda Sulawesi Tengah and Polres Parigi Moutong, they're responsible for keeping things secure.
It's worth remembering, too, that this whole issue, the 5-year waiting period, it was actually raised early on, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. The challenge that ultimately reached the MK came from candidate pair number 3, M. Nizar Ramatu and Ardi. They argued about the waiting period from the start.
And the highest court, the MK, basically agreed with their argument in the end.
That's right. Which does make you wonder a bit about the initial checks, how he got through the earlier stages, despite this clear legal point.
Yeah, it highlights how critical those verification processes are.
Definitely. Precision matters in election law.
So I guess the main takeaway here is a seemingly small detail, just the exact timing of that 5-year period, ended up completely overturning an election result.
Absolutely. It led to the disqualification, nullified votes, and now this whole revote, a huge consequence from what looks like a technicality on the surface.
It really underscores the complexity, doesn't it?
It does. And it brings up that constant balancing act in law, I think, between maybe giving individuals a second chance after a conviction.
And upholding the really strict rules meant to ensure electoral integrity.
Exactly that balance. Where do you draw the line?
It's definitely something to chew on after this deep dive. How much precision is needed, and what does it mean for the democratic process when these rules have such dramatic impacts? Food for thought.